a city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And plenty to discuss tonight. Just a couple of things I want to quickly mention. There's a huge fake Reich scandal, right? Saying that Trump has put out an ad highlighting the Third Reich is the implication. I'm going to get to that in a moment. It's a fake, phony fraud allegation, not because I am partial to Trump, just because it honestly is. This is a manufactured story if I've ever seen one. And I also want to get into the Biden administration's repeated condolences for the Iranian president. We're going to discuss that as well. There's also Joe Biden releasing more barrels of our strategic petroleum reserve. And this didn't come as a surprise to me. I'm pretty sure we all saw this coming. This is how he's going to do it, right? Inflation's not my fault, man. I got hairy legs. Come on, man. You ain't black. This is the price gouging from the manufacturers. It's corporate greed, you see. This is what he does. He blames it on everybody else. And now it's, it's the gas stations charging too much for gas. So he's going to lower the price of gas by putting us in more harm's way, making us more vulnerable with less of a strategic petroleum reserve. We'll get into that in a little bit as well. The Trump team has rested their case. Yesterday, the prosecution rested. Today, the Trump team rested. And that is a wrap. We're going to get some reaction from somebody who was in the courtroom in a little bit. Klaus Schwab, he is the crazy that talks like this. And he's announced his retirement as head of World Economic Forum. That sounds a little more Putin-esque, right? Yeah, I got to work on my Klaus Schwab. But yes, he has resigned. Yay, is I guess the sentiment that comes to mind. And another report now. Listen to this. Post-millennial. It's been revealed that Biden's FBI authorized use of deadly force when necessary during the Mar-a-Lago raid, where they staged all those photos with the Trump documents. This is a big one. I want to get into that as well when we come back. Because, again, if you're there to get documents, what do you got to kill people for? Right? That's pretty... it goes without saying. It's a law enforcement operation. Something goes down, something goes down. But you're talking about going into a place that's protected by the Secret Service, the home of a former president. I don't think that's necessarily somewhere you expect to get into a gunfight. Authorizing deadly force, I think, is a little stretch too far, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and plenty more. I want to get into a lot of things right now. I also wanted to have an editorial note. Yesterday, in talking about Michael Cohen being the fake, phony fraud that he is, and the government star witness, there was part of the report was that Michael Cohen had taken $50,000, I believe it was, and had to pay $20,000 to a vendor and kept $30,000 that he stole from the Trump organization. I misspoke and said $30 million. Now, I understand adding the extra zeros is a big deal, but I think misspeaking is sometimes a common thing when you say a lot of words like I do. So I apologize for saying 30 million rather than 30,000. However, I will say some of the critique that I have gotten over this a little bit heavy-handed. And for those of you who want to come for me, I invite you, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I'll take my 30 million with a correction the next day, any day. My track record's pretty good. A lot of people try to challenge me on things, and after they do their homework, they realize, oh, shoot, they were wrong. So keep that in mind. But yeah, feel free. Give me a call. Let me know. And one of the comments I saw said that there was an awkward pause of silence after I made this error. The awkward pause and silence was audio that didn't play. Had nothing to do with anything else. People were coming to all sorts of conclusions because I called for some audio from CNN making commentary on this Michael Cohen theft. So sometimes you don't have all the facts, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. All right, now I want to get into the story today, this big manufactured crisis. Joe Biden and the Democrats are saying that Trump is promoting a unified Reich, a unified Reich in a dog whistle. First, I'm going to let you hear what Joe Biden had to say. Then I'll tell you what really happened. Listen to this.
What's next for America?
Is this on his official account? Wow. A unified Reich? That's Hitler's language. That's not America's. He cares about holding on to power. I care about you.
Now, that clip that you just heard, there's a whole ad attached to that. Nowhere in the ad do you hear them talk about a unified Reich. However, the ad, the visual component of the ad, has old newspaper clippings in the background of current clippings on Trump's accomplishments as president. And there's all sorts of things like the fall of the Berlin Wall and other major news things in this. It's like a vintage news template to make this ad, a video template. Anyway, one of the vintage articles that comes up in the background is a headline from the World War II era where it says something about a unified Reich. It's very faint, it's faded, and it's in the background, just like all the other old articles that are running in the background, almost like a microfiche, if you know what that is, like microfilm. And anyway, point is, somebody says, oh my gosh, look at that, it says Reich there, and they zoom in on this, and now Joe Biden himself comes out making a video saying, come on, that's Hitler, Nazi talk. He knows full well, or at least he believes full well. Maybe somebody told him, oh my gosh, they're talking about the Reich, and maybe he believes this to be true because he's got bad people around him. But whomever made this decision, very, very bad move. But they know that because they like to manufacture these crises so they can come in and say, oh, you see, this is Trump and he's all about that, blah, blah, blah. Nothing new from the usual suspects, the left within the media, the left within the Democrat Party, the left within the White House. This is what they do. But rest assured, it's absolutely a manufactured crisis. And again, not because of my defense of Trump. This is really just a defense of the truth. When you see this video, you'll see for yourself that what they're saying and what actually happened are two completely different things. The fact that there's a newspaper headline for anybody who buys this template, if you're making a video and you buy this template to edit your video, whomever buys this video, it's going to say a unified Reich, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the other major headlines that it gives, these historical headlines, as part of the template. Then you add the new ones that you want to add that are in the foreground, not the background. Pretty simple to me. But the media, they don't bother to fact check. They don't bother to say, hold on, let me look at this ad. Let me see what's actually going on here. Nope. They go with this hook, line, and sinker. So shame on the American media and the international media if they're also turning a blind eye, because it's not where we need to be. Not when we're months away from an election and we should be doing our jobs. Anyway, I want to get into a little bit more conversation on something called the SHUSH Act, some reaction to the news of the day, and some additional legislation that's out there to protect our men and women in blue. So I want you to stick with me as we are scheduled to have a conversation with the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Bob Good. Congressman Bob Good joins us next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener. who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. As promised, we continue our conversation. Joining us live from the Capitol is Congressman Bob Good, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, welcome back.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, sir. Now, of course, there's a bunch of things I want to go over with you. Of course, there's some great legislation that you have been involved with, the SHUSH Act, the Protect Our Police Act, and a bunch of things that we're going to jump into. But I want to get your reaction to this manufactured fake, phony fraud scandal of the unified Reich that seems to be making its way through the left-wing media. What do you make of that, Congressman?
Clarify your question. I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, I'm not sure if you've seen this news. They're accusing President Trump of having an ad promoting a unified Reich, when apparently it was an old newspaper footage that was in the background of a template for the commercial that some supporter made. It's not even a campaign commercial, but he did retweet it, and it seems like more underhanded tactics from the media that we typically, and from the Democrats, quite frankly, that we've seen before. But one would think that they would learn their lesson.
Well, it is typical of the Democrat Party and their extension, by extension, the media at large, as we know, which is an extension of the Democrat Party, Democrat Party cannot win at the ballot box without being dishonest and deceptive. If the American people really knew who the Democrat Party was and what they would do with sustained full control of government like they had during Biden's first 2 years of the administration, then Democrats would never win another election. If the American people really understood what their ultimate goals are on climate and energy, what their ultimate goals are with the border invasion, what their ultimate goals are with the weakening of the military, and issue after issue. And certainly they will stop at nothing to try to destroy their political opponents, whether it's the lawfare that's going on, the abuse of power, the collusion with big tech to suppress information, the interference with elections that went on in 2020 and certainly going on now with the attack on the President Trump, that is. And so this is just par for the course for the Democrat Party.
Yeah, and they seem to never fact-check him. I saw a clip of video and audio of President Biden giving a speech, I think at one of the commencements over the weekend, and he was, I believe it was Morehouse College, and he's telling a large group of African-American students that the police are killing young black men. And it just, he says it rolls off the tongue as if this is just a commonplace thing, as if it's open season on black men in America. And I think, police are the ones that are under attack, in my opinion. I've seen police be targeted in so many situations. And I feel the president doing this is, A, not productive, and B, really detrimental to the national discourse. What say you?
Yes, the Democrat Party can only succeed to the extent that they keep people dependent on the government and therefore dependent on Democrats, and that's what would keep them in power, or keep us divided against one another. I can remember when Barack Obama was first elected in 2008 and was sworn into office in 2009. And I can remember the left-wing media, the extension again of the Democrat Party, saying, hey, this doesn't mean we've become a post-racial society. Well, it did mean a whole lot. It did mean a whole lot that we were somewhat unique among nations of the world, that a minority rose to the highest law position in the land. And then, despite doing an awful job, he was reelected in 2012 because the majority of the country, of course, didn't care what he looked like. I didn't happen to agree with his policies, but we came out of the Obama administration more divided than we went in racially because of the actions of the administration of the very president. And so Joe Biden himself finds himself, cratering into the abyss in terms of poll numbers generally, but specifically in the minority community, whether it's the Hispanic community or the black community, as they realize, that the Democrat Party has failed them for decades now. and he knows that President Trump's numbers are going up among the black community. So you see him, try to gaslight here and to try to create fear. Remember, during the Bush administration, or during the Bush elections, it was, the black churches are going to burn if George Bush is elected president, going back some 20 years now. But this is just the latest tactic by by Democrats, because this is what they have to do to try to win, and this is what they will do to try to win: scare tactics, fear-mongering, frankly, racist tactics, and demagoguery, which is the only thing that they have left.
And, I think this is why it's important to have legislation like the one that you put forward, the Protect Our Police Act. And we're coming on right off the heels of National Police Week, which ended on the 18th. Tell us about the Protect Our Police Act, Congressman.
Well, the Democrat Party, of course, is the party that's anti-law enforcement. They try to take away qualified immunity for police officers. They've tried to just undermine and defund police. Obviously, that was a disaster for them in 2020 when they tried to do that in terms of losing the House anyway because of those policies. But the Obama-Biden administration had prohibitions in place preventing police departments from having access to life-saving military surplus equipment, the kind of equipment that keeps them safe when they're in high-risk situations, riots, things like that. And President Trump had an executive order that overturned that. But what this would do is codify it into law that police departments across the country can have access to that surplus military-style equipment that can keep them safe in the high-risk situations, national disasters, riot situations, terrorist-type situations, border security efforts and counter-drug efforts where they face, again, greater danger. We want to do everything that we can on the Republican side to keep our police officers safe, allow them to keep our communities safe, and give them what they need. And so this bill would help do that.
Now, I think these types of bills, that are good, right, good for people, we oftentimes don't hear enough about them. And we oftentimes don't hear enough about how folks in Congress are standing with the men and women in law enforcement. I think it's important for, at least for the listeners that are listening to realize that if there is surplus equipment, and this was a bill, let's just say the Democrats didn't want to support, this would create a vacuum or at least more taxes, more expense for local police departments that are trying to respond to whatever and what have you. And something that we could fix by putting a law like this together. And I just think it's so interesting to see how you get bad politics that get in the way of a good law like this.
No question. You've got 800,000 or so law enforcement officers in the country who go to work every day, not knowing what they're going to face, not knowing if they're going to come home in one piece. And they're the ones who rush into danger when the rest of us are running out, of course. And we need to do everything we can to help them keep us safe, but also help them keep themselves safe. And there was a study done just a few years ago that showed that for every 10% increase in the value of the military type aid equipment leads to a decrease in crime by some 6 crimes per 100,000 population. So, equipping our police with what they need helps them to reduce crime and keep all of us safe, in addition to keeping those police officers safe as they exercise their duties and put their lives on the line.
Amen to that. Folks, we're on with Congressman Bob Good, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. We're going to continue our conversation with him straight ahead. He's going to tell us about the SHUSH Act and more. Don't go anywhere. I am Rich Valdez. Phone number 833-482-5337.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm telling you, today when I saw 1 minute of silence in, at the United Nations, member of Security Council, it was a slap on the face of Iranian women who got killed simply for showing their hair. It's a slap on the face of men getting executed simply for protesting. So for that, this is 21st century. let's be very, very honest. Unarmed people, armless people cannot be successful if the whole, world supporting these killers, the butcher of the Islamic Republic, Ali Khamenei. So I want to say that they are watching us. They are watching the whole situation, the reaction of the international communities. And that is going to embolden the regime to go after Iranian women.
That is Iranian journalist and activist Masih Alinejad commenting on ABC News yesterday over the expressions of sympathy over the death of Iranian President Raisi. And our guest, Congressman Bob Good. Congressman, what are your thoughts on all of these expressions of condolences that we're hearing from the Biden administration?
Well, Joe Biden continues to be wrong on every foreign policy decision, as he has for his entire career. Joe Biden was always thought of as kind of a buffoon before he became vice president, before he became diminished, quite frankly, in his capacity. I remember Jason Sudeikis playing him on Saturday Night Live as a gaffe machine. This is the plagiarizer in chief. He was never taken seriously. His former boss, Obama, saying that never estimated his ability to F things up. And then you had the famous defense secretary saying he's on the wrong side of every foreign policy issue. And he gets it wrong between our allies and our enemies here. Here he's undermining Israel at every turn, calling for a ceasefire, calling for Israel to release these terrorists, calling for Israel to stand down, wants to fund Hamas. It wants to give billions more dollars to Iran to fund terrorism, the number one state sponsor of terrorism. He and Obama together gave him some $150 billion that's being used to fund terrorism today, and then he gives him $6 billion after he becomes president. Meanwhile, to your point, he's expressing he and his administration condolences and sympathy to the death of their president, who was being groomed to become the next supreme leader. Of course, we know the Ayatollah is the ultimate leader, not the president. So Biden gets it wrong with encouraging and supporting our adversaries. Doesn't confront China the way President Trump did. Obviously, Russia felt emboldened to do what they did with Ukraine. North Korea is further emboldened. Iran is emboldened, and the president is undermining our few true allies on the world stage, including number one, Israel.
Congressman, I agree with you. This is just a bad move, and it seems like he's just constantly groveling to make the Iranians happy. But then you come stateside, and you see that not only did he help them make a fortune with selling gas and oil, but then he comes here and he's releasing some ungodly number of barrels from our own strategic petroleum reserve in order to try and get a boost in the poll numbers, it seems. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he's trying to buy votes again. It's another vote-buying scheme, as he did 2 years ago. He thinks it's the strategic political reserve. I mean, you could argue the president should be impeached, not just for the invasion at the border, not just for the Biden crime family activities, but even for this, depleting our strategic petroleum reserve once again for political purposes. His policies have caused gasoline to go to, in the range of $4 a gallon nationally after he inherits it at $2 a gallon. Of course, he lies about that. He lies about the gas price, just like he lies about inflation generally. You wonder, is he that incompetent or that dishonest or some perverse mix of the two? But what a violation of the authority and the power entrusted in him as the president, that he would deplete this reserve, which is supposed to be for national security purposes, obviously, not for him to buy votes on the eve of an election. This is a futile attempt to try to impact gas prices. It won't have much of an impact because it's just not sufficient to do so. But obviously, it's an egregious abuse of power to do it for political reasons, to try to buy votes, to try to prop up his faltering disaster of a campaign.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one as well. Now, I want to talk about another piece of legislation that you have been involved with that I think people need to know about, and it's called the SHUSH Act. Tell us about it.
Yes, currently suppressors, or what some would call silencers, not really silencers, of course, but suppressors are regulated like firearms, and they're an accessory to a firearm. They're not a firearm. and which means that they're much harder to get. It takes a longer time to get those. You have to pay an extra tax for those. And so my bill would overturn the Biden administration's regulation of suppressors at the federal level and preempt state law for those states that regulate or tax or prohibit the possession of suppressors. Suppressors aren't like in the movies. In the movies, they're like almost silent. That's not how it is. I have utilized firearms with a suppressor attached to them, but they help ensure safety. They protect hearing. They limit recoil on the firearm, and they can actually help perfect the aim of the user of the firearm. And so what my legislation would do is eliminate some of the overly complicated and antiquated process for acquiring a suppressor and ensure that those are no longer subject to federal regulation, because this sets a dangerous precedent. When the administration or the federal government is regulating accessories, then that's is further down the slippery slope of trying to further regulate firearms and prohibit access to firearms and further restrict our Second Amendment rights, our God-given Second Amendment rights that are protected in our Constitution. So this would overturn the Biden regulations on suppressors and let them be treated like other accessories without the additional onerous burden, delays in getting those, and the additional taxes that have to be paid.
This is a great thing, and I'll tell you why. Because I think it's so important that we pay attention, right, as people, we the people. And if the government is allowed to run amok and do what they want with a suppressor, or as they like to call it, a silencer, who says that they can't do it on other things like ammo? And
exactly.
Should the day come where that happens, what good is your gun if you can't get ammo?
That's exactly right. They want to make it. They are constantly, relentlessly pursuing their anti-Second Amendment agenda. We have a Constitution for a reason, whether the Democrat Party likes it or not. There's a method for changing the Constitution if you don't like it. It's called an amendment to the Constitution. It's difficult by design. It takes time. It takes overwhelming support among the Congress and among the respective state legislatures to accomplish it by design. If they don't like the Second Amendment, they should work to change the Second Amendment by actually amending the Constitution. I don't think they're going to be successful doing that, but that's the process. Not to try to do it through regulatory action and bureaucrats who are not accountable to the American people. But this is a relentless pursuit of an anti-freedom agenda, an anti-Second Amendment agenda, an anti-self-defense agenda. And whether it's going after the ability of gun dealers to be able to get financing, or ammo producers to get financing and things like that, access to capital, access to financing, this is just their relentless pursuit of trying to strip away our Second Amendment rights.
Now, Congressman, before we part ways, I just want to get your thoughts on. There's at least every other week I hear a call for the head of Speaker Johnson. How's he doing? Are you guys coming for his head? Is he doing his job right? Give us an update.
Well, there was only a couple of members who were calling for that, and of course they made an effort to do that. And while I am greatly disappointed in Speaker Johnson's performance, I think he has failed us. He's kind of joined hands with the Democrats on every meaningful piece of legislation that's passed out of the House over what's it been now since the end of October, so the 7 months or so that he's been Speaker. I don't think now is the time to do that. I think the time to have a Speaker battle is in November after the election. Right now we need to focus on reelecting President Trump, winning back the Senate, growing our House majority. But Speaker Johnson needs to change course, I think, if he's going to continue to be Speaker after the next election.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman Bob Good, I want to thank you for being with us, Chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I appreciate you staying up late with us.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. Godspeed. All right, folks, we're coming back. Your calls, and I got a bunch more to discuss with you. There's a lot in the news today. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue the late night national conversation with you all, the callers. Let's go over to California, KVTA, and check in with Chip. What's up? You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, Rich. I was really disappointed to hear that President Trump can't testify because of that gag order. I don't know how that's even legal, but I was really how is that fair? I mean, he would be his best witness. How is he not allowed to testify?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't hear that he wasn't able to testify. I know that I think that neither side wanted to put him on the stand. Obviously, I think the defense didn't want to put him on the stand because he could, potentially say way too much, right? And create a lot of waves with the judge. It's bad enough if he murmurs something in court, it becomes a big deal. And I think the other side might have been afraid. They might have been honestly afraid to put him on the stand because if they figure if they go and they try to do a direct examination and he gives answers that they don't like, kind of like Hillary Clinton. If you think about when she was debating Trump and she said, well, it's a good thing Americans don't have someone with your temperament that's in charge. And he just turned around and said, yep, because you'd be in jail. And it was one of the best applause lines, one of the best debate lines ever, I think. And the reason why is because he's very clever, he's very witty, and he knows how to get under people's skin. And he's a very smart guy, especially when he, has to think quickly on his feet. So I think that's more of it. I think that the gag order is really there to prevent him from protecting himself, defending himself when he's out in the public. And you're right. It is very disappointing to see that happen. But again, another brilliant strategy, whether it's his legal team or him, he's allowed to have people in the courtroom with him, and he's brought many. I think yesterday I saw Kash Patel there. Who else? Alan Dershowitz. A number of very prominent, experienced lawyers that were there and able to weigh in. And they take their turns. When they're done, they don't have gag orders. So they're able to go outside and tell everybody what they're thinking. And straight ahead, actually, I'm going to play an audio from Congressman Maria Elvira Salazar from Florida, who went off in Spanish at that. But I think ultimately, Chip, that's the reasoning behind it. And you're right. There's nobody better than Trump to defend Trump. And that's really why they have the gag order on him publicly. So hopefully that helps. I appreciate the call. Big shout out to everybody listening in California and KVTA, Los Angeles area, Ventura area. Thank you for the call, Chip. And I want to play that clip that I was just mentioning. This is Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. She is a Republican from Florida. She was outside the courthouse today in New York City, and she calls the Trump trial a political circus, something only seen in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. And a good portion of this audio clip is in Spanish, but that's what makes it so fun. Listen to this.
We are the largest minority in the country, the Hispanics. Los hispanos somos la minoría más importante en los Estados Unidos. Esto es un circo político que solamente se ve en Cuba, en Venezuela y en Nicaragua. Es una vergüenza que nosotros, independientemente de lo que usted piensa de Trump, si le gusta Trump, si no le gusta Trump, lo que piense de él, en realidad es que en este país no se logra una lucha política en las cortes, se logra en el ballot box, en las urnas. Y por eso le estoy diciendo a los hispanos, wake up, despiértense, que lo que está pasando es marxismo y nosotros vinimos a este país para no tener esto, sino para que el futuro de nuestros hijos.
Now, for those of you who can't recall some of your high school or college Spanish, basically, again, she's just reiterating that what we're seeing is Marxism, and we're accustomed to seeing political battles take place in courtrooms are places like Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, not here in the United States. And irrespective of what one thinks about Trump, his mannerisms, his style, or anything else, we can't allow that to cloud our judgment on what's right versus what's wrong. And then she yells, wake up! And she actually yelled it in English. But I have to say, very, very accurate, very, very poignant comment, because this is a woman who understands communism. She's Cuban. And I think that's what we need to never lose sight of. I don't care how much you don't like Trump or you don't like me. Don't lose your own moral compass, your own sense of right versus wrong, good and bad. Ultimately, that's what's paramount here, doing the right thing. Now, oftentimes there's disagreement on what the right thing is, but we have to have some agreement on what true north is. All right, I'm coming right back to continue. I wanted you to hear what Marco Rubio had to say on Meet the Press. We'll play that when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So, of course, I try my best to get back to everybody that reaches out with comments and critiques. And sometimes it's too much to type out in the form of a comment on Facebook or Twitter. But I will say one of the critiques that I've been receiving, and I don't know if it's specifically for me, but more so the outcome of yesterday's Trump trial, was that Michael Cohen did, in fact, admit to stealing this money, right? $30,000. It was $50,000 that he got. He spent $20,000 on a vendor, and he kept $30,000 for himself. Now, there was a lot of downplaying of that from folks in the media. Lawrence O'Donnell, for example, from MSNBC, he tried to downplay the fact that Michael Cohen stole this money from Trump, saying that he was just trying to rebalance his bonus. Listen to this.
I saw everything, Todd Blanche. I've seen every minute of cross-examination. I've seen every single question he's asked. And he sat down and ended his cross-examination without asking a single question about the $130,000 that appears on the Alan Weisselberg notes about how they were structuring the payment to Michael Cohen. He asked about the $50,000 that's irrelevant to the $130,000, and that's where he very effectively got Michael Cohen to agree that, yes, he stole $30,000. Later, when Cohen was asked about that on redirect by the prosecution, it didn't really sound like stealing $30,000. It sounded a lot like Michael Cohen doing the little that he could within that calculation to rebalance the bonus he thought he deserved, and it still came out as less than the bonus he thought he deserved and the bonus he'd gotten the year before.
Well, let me get that right, Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC. If I suspect a certain bonus from my employer, then I should just go ahead and take it and keep the change, right? Because if I got this much last year, carried it through, times 4, yep, that's it, steal 30 grand. No, sir. That's total fraud. And I think everybody knows it. And to suggest that, anybody that's listening, that you could go and tell your boss, well, look, last year I got this much, so I'm just going to embezzle that money. And even though it's less than my last year's bonus, we're good. We're good. No. People are upset that the Trump team did well on this cross-examination, direct examination. And they're upset that the biggest crime that came out of this whole trial was committed by Michael Cohen. Yes, he's not on trial, but yes, he is the biggest criminal. Folks, stick with me. We're coming right back. We continue the conversation, your calls, and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you on the Tuesday night edition of the program. And if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, give me a call. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the number. And a bunch going on. The Bragg team, Alvin Bragg's team, is pushing jurors to use a lower standard of proof in order to convict Trump no matter what. That comes as no surprise. Then you've got the classified documents case could actually get dismissed due to Jack Smith's appointment, which actually violates the Constitution. That's something that former Attorney General Edwin Meese and the great one Mark Levin and others have written amicus briefs on, and that may be the actual case. And we'll see how that develops. But there's also a couple other things I want to talk about. The FBI is now being, I guess it's revealed, is the way the story's coming forward, that they authorized deadly force. And, of course, this is coming from Joe Biden himself. We'll get into that in a little bit. And there's a poll out that shows Tim Scott being the vice presidential pick that helps Trump the most. That's an interesting take. A surprising one, too. I didn't think that would have been the case. We'll get into that a little bit, maybe at the top of the next hour as well. But something I want to talk about here, because Biden continues to blame his Bidenflation on corporate price gouging. And we've got a report from KARE. Listen to this.
Target announced it's cutting prices on thousands of items in an effort to compete for inflation-wary shoppers. Starting today, it's lowering prices on a wide range of household products and food. Target says it already cut prices on 1,500 other items and says more deals will be coming throughout the summer. Other retailers like IKEA and Aldi have also been reducing prices to attract more customers.
Now, listen, this is great, but this is not exactly how you fight inflation, right? This is Joe Biden leaning on his corporate friends to say, hey, look, and maybe they're not his friends, right? Maybe it's just strong-arming them saying, hey, look, Aldi and Target and, all he needs to do is get Walmart under his thumb and then say, look, you guys are going to have to lower your prices. Why? Because my policies caused inflation. And I've got to fool people into thinking that all they keep telling me is that they can't afford groceries, so you got to make them afford groceries. And it's a strategy that, in my opinion, won't work because ultimately there's not going to be parity, P-A-R-I-T-Y, right? It just won't work. But he can make it look like it's working, and this is how he does it. So I want to get a deep dive into this with Joel Pollak. He's the politics editor at Breitbart News, and he's with us tonight. Joel, welcome.
How are you doing?
Wonderful. So I'm looking at a piece on Breitbart. It says Biden's latest inflation narrative, corporate price gouging. And we've heard that before, and I'm sure we'll hear it again, saying that this is why things are so costly. And we hear this report that Target's now lowering some of their prices and Aldi is lowering their prices. And I'm very skeptical to think that this is because inflation's going down. Your thoughts?
Well, inflation is coming down, although prices are not, because inflation is still happening, and the inflation rate is higher than it was when President Biden took office. So we have seen inflation come down a little bit as the Fed has raised interest rates, which makes certain things more expensive, like buying a home, but it does tend to slow the economy down because people are borrowing less, they're investing less, and hiring less, and we've seen unemployment tick up just a little bit. So, yeah, the Biden administration is trying this gimmick. It's funny that they're blaming corporate price gouging because I thought this was Putin's price hike. Remember that? They were blaming Vladimir Putin.
That's right.
That's what they call it, Putin's price hike. So I guess they couldn't blame Putin anymore, so now they're going to blame some other boogeyman, some other enemy. And it's too bad that the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank released a report today that price gouging by corporations is not actually to blame for inflation. That's the San Francisco Federal Reserve Branch. And they say that the fluctuations in prices haven't really been driving inflation. So, we've just heard this all the time. I mean, this is the standard Obama-Biden line, that there are rich people who are exploiting you and you have to vote for me so I can get them back, so I can reel them in. They have to pay their fair share, says Biden, who evaded taxes and whose son is on trial for tax fraud. These greedy corporate billionaires have to pay their fair share. It's always funny. Once in a while, someone will ask the White House to define what a fair share of taxes is. And they always avoid answering that question because when you look at what the wealthy pay in this country, they actually pay a huge, disproportionate amount of the taxes. I don't think you have to feel bad for extremely wealthy people. I'm just pointing out that we have no idea what the term fair share means, and we probably couldn't agree on what it means if we tried, but they keep insisting that that term means something. So anyway, this is Biden trying to evade responsibility. I don't think that the price of groceries is necessarily the problem, although it's certainly something people think about. The real problem is that overall, the middle-class American dream is no longer affordable for middle-class Americans. That's how people feel about it. They're looking at the housing prices especially. And you talk to young Americans, they don't think they're ever going to own a house, at least not somewhere where they would want to live, where they can find work easily, where they can socialize with friends. People do make the jump into the peri-urban areas like the distant suburbs or maybe even country areas and that kind of thing to buy a house, but that's not for everybody. And for young Americans who want to live in close suburbs or in urban areas, they just don't believe they're ever going to be able to afford anything. They are going to rent. And that has political consequences too. Renters think differently about politics than owners do. Ownership implies responsibility, right? You start thinking about property taxes. You think about how to improve the neighborhood, the community. When you're a renter, you're thinking more about what people can do for you. And I'm not saying that is true of everybody, obviously, but there is just a different mentality. And when you have an entire generation that is growing up with that idea that they're never going to own anything, they have no stake in this society and its values, you get a more revolutionary, volatile situation like we saw in 2020 and we've started to see on the college campuses this year.
Yeah, they're disenfranchised in many ways from society.
Yeah, and people feel that they'll never get over this hump. Plus, there's no real end in sight to the national debt that we're saddling the next generation with, and Biden just keeps spending and spending and spending, and there's no political will to end the spending. So young people are not terribly hopeful about joining an ownership society, the way George W. Bush used to talk about it. And yeah, that's the real inflation problem, I think. It's just that people don't feel like they're going to be able to afford what their parents took for granted.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And another Band-Aid that I see Biden trying to implement here is selling off 1 million barrels of gasoline held in the strategic reserve to keep prices low before the election. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again before Election Day to keep the prices low. Do you think that this is a Band-Aid that will get him enough of a jump in polls to make a difference? Will it move the needle?
I don't think anything is going to move the needle for Joe Biden. I don't think anybody is going to change their minds about him. I don't think anything can help him other than the machinery of voting. Democrats are very happy with vote by mail. Republicans are very unhappy with it. Republicans also don't seem to have adjusted to it too well, even given 4 years to work on it. So I think Democrats are hoping that their command of the vote by mail system, which involves mass registration, follow-up, tracking the ballots, understanding who the voters are, when they've returned the ballots, it gets very complicated. They have a whole system for doing it. Whereas Republicans look around the world at people going to vote at the polls with photo ID on Election Day, and it's only one day, it's not a whole season. And that's what Republicans want. Republicans want the civic ritual of democracy as we understand it, and as we have practiced it in this country for more than a century. By the way, voting used to be quite different in this country. In the late 19th century, we saw the invention of the secret ballot. But before that, you would go to your polling place and you would say out loud who you were voting for, and they would count the votes that way.
Caucuses.
Right. And the problem with that is that there was a lot of intimidation by the parties. Essentially, the parties were able to control the voting process. So we came up with a secret ballot, and the secret ballot was a standard for more than 100 years until vote by mail. And now the parties, or at least the Democratic Party, controls the system once again because the Democrats pushed vote by mail in 2020. They started it in states like California, and almost every state that's adopted vote by mail has found it very difficult to elect Republicans.
Yeah,
Democrats
that's so true.
They use vote by mail to reach the low turnout voters. Republicans are still focused on turning out voters. Democrats just want to turn out all votes. And it's a very different way of turning out the vote. So I think if there's one hope Democrats have, it's that these pieces of paper are more important than the people who cast them.
Folks, we're on with Joel Pollak, politics editor at Breitbart News. We're coming right back. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The president can change it with his...
He's going to try.
He can make his own change. He got rid of them within the first 100 days of his office.
He's going to try to do these things through executive order. He will be sued. He may or may not win in court. But the point is, we're urging him just to do what you do if Congress was doing their job, because Congress is not doing their job. They will not vote on this.
Can he reverse what he reversed?
No, the law on asylum is really clear. If you have a colorable claim that you're coming from a horrible country that has horrible things happening, you have a right to come here. The problem is the process is taking too long. We need to expedite it. And the other thing we need is emergency work visas.
That is Senator Kristen Gillibrand on Good Day New York with Rosanna Scotto, saying that no, he can't go back to the Trump policies on immigration. And again, I think falsely putting out that if you have a credible asylum claim, you're allowed to come to America. You might be allowed to seek asylum from some country that's not your own, but doesn't have to be America. I want to get back into this with our guest, Joel Pollak, politics editor at Breitbart News. Joel Pollak, when you hear Senator Gillibrand saying this stuff, what's your reaction to that?
Well, Senator Gillibrand is really quite interesting. I mean, she has been a presidential candidate. She's tried on that level to exercise some kind of leadership in her party. And remember, she crashed out pretty early. I remember actually covering her on the campaign trail back in 2019. She was fond of saying that because she was female, she would clean up the Oval Office before doing anything. The joke was supposed to be that Donald Trump had left some kind of toxic mess in the White House. But, of course, she was also seeming to say that women do housework. I mean, it was this weird... she's so tone deaf. I mean, it was so weird. And she didn't last very long. There wasn't a lot of room in that sort of feminist lane for more than Elizabeth Warren, really. Kamala Harris didn't last past December, although she came back, of course, as the vice presidential nominee. So, it's hard for me to hear anything and focus on anything other than what Gillibrand said 4 years ago. She hasn't really been much of a factor in anything since then. She's sort of disappeared. The one thing she did was reform the military system for reporting sexual misconduct, and it's not even clear that her reforms are going to help anything. But you'll have to just refresh me, what is she talking about?
Yeah, well, right. Well, I mean, obviously, it's more of the same. It's more nonsense on why Biden is breaking the immigration system and can't do anything to turn it around, although I think he can. And I think the reporter's question is a good one, saying that, if these ideas, these executive orders that Biden had suck so badly, then why don't we reverse them? And she comes up with this song and dance. And it leads us to your thoughts on where do we go from here with immigration? Does it continue to remain broken, and we just wait for the hope of the advent of a Trump presidency and mass deportation? Is that the only way?
Well, I think you have to have the wall before you have anything else, and it really has to be an impenetrable system before there's anything else done. Whether it's deportation or whether it's some kind of deal, I guess, for the dreamers, whatever it is, you cannot have an immigration system that is so easy to go around. I mean, that's the problem. You need a physical barrier, you need other kinds of barriers, you need support for the Border Patrol. Biden likes to say that he wants to spend more money on the Border Patrol, but of course, he doesn't want to spend more money on doing their job. He wants to spend more money on importing more migrants. In fact, the Biden administration seems to be eager to compete with the cartels in terms of smuggling people into the country. That's their vision for how to spend money on the border. But look, Americans are going to have a hard time seeing mass deportation. We learned in 2018 we don't even like seeing a zero-tolerance policy at the border enforced. And when Trump tried to enforce one, he was accused of separating families, et cetera, which was all nonsense. But we just don't like to see laws enforced. That's why our cities are a mess, because we don't have people who like enforcing laws anymore. I mean, the police do the best job they can, but we have raised a couple of generations of Americans who don't understand that to keep your society safe, sometimes you need to do some rough things. And to keep people out of your country, you're going to have to push them back across the border. So we want to minimize the amount of human interaction we have when these laws are enforced. So you have to have a physical barrier that doesn't involve people seizing other people. You know, it's not something Americans are going to like. But you've basically got to build the wall. And Trump tried in his first term. I think he understands that, you know, if he gets a second chance, he has to make that the top priority.
Now, I want to switch gears before we run out of time, and I want to get your thoughts on the condolences that have been offered to Iran over the passing, the killing of the president of Iran. And a lot of people are up in arms about this, and I think rightfully so. Where do you weigh in on that?
Well, it would be like offering condolences for Hitler's suicide. You know, we extend our condolences for the tragic, self-inflicted wounds of Hitler. He must have been such a troubled soul. Maybe he was really an artist right to the end. I mean, it's so disgusting. You know, the State Department tried to say, well, you know, we also offered condolences to the Soviet Union when Joseph Stalin died.
Right.
But that was different. I mean, Stalin had been an ally of the United States during the Second World War. So as horrible as he is, and he really does rank up there with Hitler, he may even have surpassed Hitler in terms of the number of deaths for which he was personally responsible. Stalin was a U.S. ally during the Second World War, and it's understandable that there would be some kind of statement. But this is just unbelievable. You know, offering condolences to the guy who was part of the Death to America crowd. You should rather offer encouragement to the Iranian people.
Thank you, Joel Pollak. I appreciate it. We're going to leave it there. Folks, Joel Pollak, Breitbart News editor. Joel, I appreciate you being here. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Coming right back, Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, amigos. And we continue our late night national town hall conversation. And a couple of things I want to get into here. I want to get into what happened in the courtroom today and yesterday for the Trump trial. But there's a bigger story that I want to address, and it's the FBI was authorized to use deadly force in classified documents case and the search at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. And this is revealed in court filings today to discuss that and the wrapping up of the Trump trial in New York City. As somebody who was in the courtroom with President Trump, Kash Patel, he's the former chief of staff at the Department of Defense at the Pentagon and former prosecutor and former what was the role there? National Security Advisor to Devin Nunes on the House Intel Committee. I mean, there's so many things. I draw a blank sometimes. Forgive me on that. Kash Patel, welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be with you. And I'd just like to remind you that your show is awesome. And it is super popular out here on the West Coast where it is not too late at night. So you're winning it across from coast to coast.
Thank you, Kash. I appreciate that. And, of course, I want to remind everybody that you're also the author of the book, Government Gangsters, The Deep State, The Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. And this is a book that if you haven't gotten a copy, I recommend getting 2 copies of the book, Government Gangsters, The Deep State, The Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy by Kash Patel. Get one for yourself. Give one to somebody else. Now, Kash, I want to hear all about, what went on in the courtroom, but I want to get your take on this because this to me is really out of control that they said they authorized deadly use of force. What's up with that?
Well, here's the thing. What we call 1811 agents, federal cops, FBI agents, ATF guys, DEA guys, when they are sworn in, part of their duty is the authorization of the use of deadly force and the execution of their duties, right? And I used to be a federal prosecutor, public defender, and used to work with these guys a ton. And what should have happened in this case, because it's such a high-profile case, is that the Department of Justice, where I used to work in the National Security Division with classified documents, should have taken out such commonplace language because all it does is it inflames the case. Nobody was going to go down to Mar-a-Lago and use deadly force. But the fact that they left it in there is the reason why it's a story. And maybe that's why they left it in there. Maybe that's why Merrick Garland and Joe Biden said, no, we want this language in there because, those papers, they can get really deadly and people might start shooting the place up over paperwork. We ship them. And so it's unfortunate that it happened. And they should have known better, but I guess it's not a surprise since it's been a rigged job from the beginning.
Yeah, and this is, again, to me, it's kind of alarming because I've spoken with some, colleagues of yours, other former federal prosecutors, who've told me that they've worked on cases where there were investigations, interviews of former presidents of other countries that were in the United States, and when they had to go speak with them, that they had a white glove treatment for these former presidents of other countries, not the United States. So it makes me think, how on earth do we have a former president of the United States and we treat him as egregiously as we do? So I when I see this, I think to myself, is this really a thing, or did they leave it in there because they're hoping that something would go awry?
They left it in there because they want to be the arbiters of a 2-tier system of justice. They want to be the ones that were led by James Comey and Merrick Garland and Andy McCabe and the guys that lied to a federal officer and a federal judge just to unlawfully surveil a federal candidate that they didn't like. They want to be the ones that go on CNN and say, look, we are the ones that upheld the law when they broke it. And they want to be the ones when they say and get caught lying and cheating, like Jack Smith has in this case by Judge Cannon, not only about the distortion of evidence but lying to a federal judge, but violating Donald Trump's constitutional rights. They want to say, we took every precaution necessary because, it was the president of the United States. But like you pointed out, there is a whole host of ways to treat people who are in the, a sort of arena that President Trump is in. How about when Hillary Clinton basically got an invitation from the FBI to sit there, if she so wished, with 6 of her lawyers, and they didn't even record the interview? That didn't happen for President Trump. They put in this language about the authorization of deadly force. Even though the officers involved in Hillary Clinton had the same exact language and ability under the law, I'm sure they didn't lead with that and say, by the way, we're going to use deadly force if we need to.
Yeah. Now, Kash Patel, and I think you're 100% right on that one. This is obviously the documents case that they staged, and they brought all those cover sheets, and they did this whole photo shoot on these documents, arranged how they wanted to arrange it. And there was a couple of things I want to talk about here, right? Because I think there was the defense of immunity in some of this, and I want to get your take on that. And there was also a amicus brief that was put forward by former Attorney General Edwin Meese and others, the great one, Mark Levin, and others that were a part of this, and saying that the appointment of Jack Smith in and of itself violated the Constitution. And I wanted to get your take on that. Do you think that is going to materialize into something that will have a major effect on this case?
Well, all of it is, and those guys are far superior legal minds than I will ever be. And so on that poignant constitutional note, I think it's worth looking at by the Supreme Court. Because once the independent counsel statute expired, the DOJ continued to run its operation on what they call truth and tradition. But the traditions of the DOJ are what have destroyed the DOJ. Remember the DOJ that would never prosecute anyone during a presidential election year? Unless your name was Donald Trump. The tradition of not going after and politicizing the weaponization of government unless you're Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters. So I think it needs to be adjudicated. And I think the other matters you raised, especially in the Judge Cannon case, and I wrote an op-ed and it was published on War Room just last week, highlighting the disgusting violations of law by the prosecutors, not only in New York, not only in Georgia, but also Jack Smith's team in Washington, D.C., where they've been now caught staging the evidence, lying to the judge about the evidence, under oath, and then hiding the evidence of that corruption from the judge herself and Donald Trump. Now the judge is rightly so offering an evidentiary hearing to basically say, you, Jack Smith and DOJ, better get your butts down here and tell me why you lied to me, which is a felony, and why I shouldn't hold you in contempt. And more importantly, you have destroyed Donald Trump's due process rights. Why should this case go forward? I think there is plenty of evidence and information in the record to jail Jack Smith and his thugs, and also exonerate Donald Trump from these bogus charges. And hopefully she lays a record for the American people to see it along the way.
Now, and it was also the same Judge Cannon that has put this trial on hold indefinitely until they have this hearing. Is that right?
Yes, and that's the only and plus we have the Supreme Court weighing in on presidential records and presidential privilege. And so there's so many issues going on related to that there's no way it could go on until these issues are resolved. Because here's the thing that everyone forgets on the left. Due process rights are enshrined for the defense and the defendant. They do not apply to the prosecution. And when the prosecution breaks the law and breaks the defendant's due process rights, you have totally set the Constitution on blaze like they have against Donald Trump. And there needs to be accountability. We know it's not coming from Joe Biden and Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray.
Kash Patel, on this last piece of immunity with the Supreme Court, again, none of us have a crystal ball, but it seems from the tea leaves that I'm looking at from a political perspective, not a legal one, that they seem to be, I think that if I had to guess, they'd probably come in on the side of saying, yeah, we have immunity, because if we throw it away for Trump, we throw it away for everybody, and we can't do that.
And that's it. And that's how short-sighted and radical the left wing and the mainstream media is. They don't care about the law or the Constitution. As long as they can shred it to get Trump, they'll figure it out later. And that's the point that Donald Trump's been making every day almost since this case started. If I, Donald Trump, don't have it, then Obama doesn't have it, then Biden doesn't have it, and Biden drone striking 7 children in Afghanistan, what if we prosecuted him? And any future president doesn't have it, so he's got to worry about the entire time he's in office, the guy coming in behind him is going to put him in jail or sue him for $1 zillion for X, Y, and Z. Presidential immunity exists, it always has, and it must be fully applied to Donald Trump and everyone else. And that's what the Supreme Court needs to hand down.
All right, amigos, we're on with Kash Patel. He was in court with Donald Trump. I saw him on TV sitting right next to former Dream Team lawyer, Professor Alan Dershowitz. And I want to get your take on everything you saw in the courtroom, and you gave a fiery speech afterwards. I want to get what some of the reaction to that has been and more when we come back. Folks, we're on with Kash Patel, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way, Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I think we have a great case was put on. There is no crime. In fact, I just got almost every review that's been done of the case so far. As they say, there is no crime. This should have never been brought. It should be dismissed before you even have a verdict.
That is former President Donald Trump, the 45th president of these United States. I like to call him Donaldus Magnus El Trompito. And he was outside the courtroom again, giving his usual outside the courtroom press conference, which I think is brilliant in and of itself. And of course, they put a gag order on him, so he gets to bring in all of his peeps. And one of those peeps is Kash Patel, former chief of staff at the Department of Defense, former federal prosecutor, former national security advisor to the House Intel Committee when Devin Nunes was the chair. And Kash Patel, when you hear President Trump say he feels confident about the defense, tell us your reaction to that and what you saw in the courtroom.
Well, that's exactly what I saw. So yesterday, all day, I arrived at Trump Tower in the morning and met with the president beforehand upstairs, took down the motorcade to the courthouse, spent the whole day with him, including during meetings and breaks, and then went back afterwards. And what you saw yesterday, what I saw, a guy who tried 60 jury trials to verdict in state and federal court was something I've never seen before. I've seen judges bias. I've seen judges come out and say we favor the prosecution. And I've seen judges lean favorably toward prosecutors to help what we call save a conviction. But I've never seen a judge lose the control of the courtroom and decide specifically to support the unconstitutional case of prosecutors in the way that Judge Merchan has prosecuted this case for the prosecutors. This guy, there is no room between them. And when Michael Cohen's testimony was obliterated on cross-examination, and Michael Cohen, admitted to 7 new felonies that I didn't even know about or the world didn't, and that the prosecutors never charged him for, it shows me the lengths that they are willing to go to and violate the rules of conduct governing prosecutors and ethics just to get Trump. And then when Costello, to boot, took the witness stand and blew a gaping hole the size of Saturn in the prosecution's case when he delivered the truth that Michael Cohen went to Costello and said, I have nothing on Donald Trump, 10 times over. That's it. There is no case. And then what did Merchan do? Kick everyone out of the courtroom, yell at Costello, act like a prosecutor, saving the case in the media so that it still has some life support. It was a disgusting display from this jackal of justice in a robe who might as well be employed by Alvin Bragg's office.
Now, I'm looking at the composite drawings of what went down in the courtroom. Costello's on the stand, Merchan is on the bench, and he says, if you stare me down one more time. What was that like when you were there? Give us the play-by-play.
The play-by-play is simple. The prosecution doesn't even have to object anymore. The defense was eliciting truthful, lawful information that this jury must have, and Judge Merchan at times, even without the prosecutor objecting, would sustain a non-objection and strike information from the record. And so Bob Costello, who like me is a former prosecutor, is just bewildered on the witness stand. He's not rude. He's not disrespectful. He's just completely dumbfounded by these rulings because the truth totally destroys the plaintiff's case. And so what does the judge do? Because the judge knows he doesn't have the law or the facts on his side or the prosecution side. He dramatizes the whole situation and makes Robert Costello into the target. Robert Costello is the victim. This judge needs to be removed from the bench just for this outbreak alone, not to mention the entire litany of charges against him from this case, including his daughter making millions of dollars from this unlawful prosecution. But I think Donald Trump was right when he went out to the sticks yesterday, the scrum, as President Trump called it, and said this judge has an opportunity to return and restore a piece of constitutional justice by dismissing this case outright, which was another argument I heard proposed by the defense lawyers yesterday. I don't think that this judge will do that, but I believe Donald Trump is correct in saying that should he take that lawful constitutional measure, we can get back on track and start restoring the judicial system and the people's faith in it. But Judge Merchan doesn't care about that. He cares about one thing, putting Donald Trump in prison. And he showed it with his arrogance and his disrespectful conduct to the witness on the stand.
Yeah, when he said, if you stare me down one more time, I'll remove you from the stand and strike your testimony. Do you understand me? I mean, I just find it so, again, I've seen Bob Costello's testimony on other things on television. Like you said, he's an officer of the court. He's a stand-up guy. And I'm looking at an op-ed by Alan Dershowitz, who was sitting right next to you in the court, saying that in his 60 years as a lawyer and law professor, he'd never seen a spectacle such as the one he observed sitting in the front row of the courthouse yesterday. Then we're talking to you, Kash Patel. It's taken 60 cases, jury trials, to a verdict, and you've never seen anything like this. It really just, it makes me lose faith, quite frankly, in our justice system, where I think, how could something so crazy happen?
No, you're absolutely right. And the people that are hurt the most are everyday Americans. Because if they're willing to do this to President Trump, just think about who's coming next, who's in the crosshairs next, both at the state and federal level. And so we, behind President Trump's courageous leadership, have been able to expose the two-tier system of justice, and that it's not a right-wing conspiracy, and that they did unlawfully target Catholics, that the DOJ and FBI did unlawfully target parents who went to their students' schools so they could voice their education platforms, and they did unlawfully target Donald Trump supporters and call them what? Domestic terrorists. I used to be a terrorism prosecutor. That may be one of the most offensive things I've ever heard, to say people practicing political free speech in the United States of America because we disagree with you are domestic terrorists. No, I manhunted terrorists, and if Joe Biden knew what he was doing, this country would be a safer place. But that's a different story because they only equate terrorism to political opponents.
Kash Patel, stick with me. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little politics with you and a little bit more. Don't go anywhere. Folks are on with Kash Patel. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Former federal prosecutor Kash Patel was in the courtroom yesterday, but he was also outside the courthouse, and boy, did he light it up outside. Kash Patel, tell us in the next minute and a half, what went down when you gave that fiery speech outside the courtroom?
Look, I was honored to be there and standing in support of the greatest president we've ever had in Donald Trump. And if he's willing to put it on the line for us every single day, then the least we can do is help him and stand up with him against this unconstitutional proceedings. And what they allowed us to do, and of course, the George Soros-funded communists were standing outside heckling us and screaming at us and just basically verbally assaulting us like I've never been verbally assaulted before. Of course, the fake news will never report the epithets they slang at me, a minority. But you cannot bend the knee to these gangsters. You cannot bend the knee. We stood tall. We had members of Congress there, and we lit into them because Donald Trump lights into the fake news and these corrupt government officials every single day, so we have to stand with them. Go watch the video. It was actually kind of fun, I'm not going to lie. And I'm proud to have been there with Donald Trump, who has called my book, Government Gangsters, A Roadmap to 2024. Listen, we're going to level the deep state together. We're going to lay it to waste behind Donald Trump's leadership. And I hope your audience goes out and gets the book. And the movie is coming out in about 4 weeks. So I hope to see you in theaters for the movie real soon.
Absolutely. And if you're still in town for the rally in the South Bronx, I'll see you there. Kash Patel, folks, follow him at Kash on Truth Social. Kash, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you. Great show. See you soon.
You bet. All right, folks, Open Phone America is coming up. And we're going to have some discussion on everything we've discussed tonight, plus whatever you want to bring to the table. Give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. It's the Tuesday night edition. If you want to join us in our late night national town hall conversation, we're live, we're national, and we're looking forward to chatting with you. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And plenty to discuss. Some of the big headlines today was revealed that the Biden FBI authorized the use of deadly force in the Mar-a-Lago raid. This was somewhat of a formality, but they didn't go out of their way to make it make sense, right? And this is why I think there's so much scrutiny with respect to that decision to not do anything. Then we've got, this is a good story, an interesting one. Klaus Schwab, he is the chairman of the World Economic Forum, the WEF. He has announced his resignation. He's the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He announced that he would be resigning from his executive role. Schwab revealed his decision in an email to staff on Tuesday, May 21st. He's 86 years old. He's going to transition to the role of non-executive chairman pending approval from the Swiss government. And again, this is the guy who dresses like a almost like a Darth Vader type, when he puts on these bolo ties and these, you'll see. If you Google him dressed like Darth Vader, you'll find it. However, he hasn't named a successor yet. I would bet that it would, somewhere in that line is going to be his right-hand man, Yuval Harari. But others are suggesting that the Norwegian named Borge Brend, he is the president, that he is going to be the successor of the organization. Now, Schwab has been the main guy since I've heard about this, and I try my best not to talk too much about him because, honestly, he's just, I don't want to give him airtime. But he's talked about crazy things, right? Climate change initiatives, massive surveillance by the state, a cashless society, banning cars, something called a 15-minute city where, everything is there. They bring the park to you. So you build an apartment complex near a park and near a mall. And there you go. You got everything you need within 15 minutes, so you don't really even need to get on a bus. Put a few of those city bikes or whatnot outside, and boom. He's promoted meat bans, dairy bans, and the like. The World Economic Forum operates like a family enterprise with, and this is according to thedailyfetched.com, where Schwab's children are in key positions. His wife, Hildy, is overseeing the organization's foundation and award ceremonies. Earlier this year, Klaus Schwab predicted that elections would soon be a quaint relic of the past, pointing to the elegance of AI as the new democracy. Yeah, he's a nut job. During an appearance at Davos, the founder, Klaus Schwab, said that nations will soon no longer need to hold elections because voting would be replaced by artificial intelligence. These sobering comments from Schwab came during an interview with Google co-founder Sergey Brin, and they were posted to Twitter by Ezra Levent from Rebel News out in Canada. And let me see if we can get this in time. At some point, I will play it on the air because this is some crazy stuff. But this is good old Klaus Schwab, and these are some of his crazy ideas. And some of his crazy ideas eventually come to life, which is probably crazier than anything else. But tell me your opinion. Do you think that we enter a point in life where we don't use elections anymore? I mean, all we hear about from the left and from everybody, right, is how dangerous Trump is to democracy. And then you have Klaus Schwab saying we don't even need elections. That sounds like a real threat to democracy to me, that we could use computers. They've also said that there's no need for God, that we eventually have computers and we'll be able to figure things out. We don't need God. And these guys are off their rocker, in my opinion. I want to know your thoughts on that, plus anything else you want to talk about that we've broached this evening, whether it's the Trump trial, the fact that the United States government can't get out of their own way to wish all of these kind words of condolence to the Tehran butcher, the former president of Iran, now deceased president of Iran, or anything else that we've talked about in between. You can feel free to call 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. And this is one of those instances where I don't like Klaus Schwab, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts on a matter like this, because clearly somebody likes him, right? All these supporters that show up at the World Economic Forum, all the donors that they have, the way they shut down Davos, Switzerland every year and host, I don't know, I'm going to guess a good amount of the world leaders, and they show up and they're happy to be there. I mean, Trump's been to the World Economic Forum. It commands quite a crowd. And, you know, even those that go begrudgingly to make the case against what they're saying still make the pilgrimage to be involved, because it's the biggest party in town when it's going down. And my thoughts there are that this is crazy, right? But we've seen crazy in many different ways. So I want to get your take on that. I also want to get your take on a couple of other things, right? There's a couple other items here in the news that I wanted to mention. Disney is laying off 14% of the workforce at Pixar. That's their animated film production company. And let me see, there was another one here. The city of Oakland, California is now replacing traffic lights with stop signs in an effort to stop the theft of copper. How about that? People are stealing the copper wire inside the traffic lights. So we stop using traffic lights and we go to these, sheet metal signs. I got to tell you, things are pretty bad in Oakland, California. So I'm going to get to that as well. And yeah, that's enough for now. When we come back, I'll give you some audio and we'll continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
Again, that is the voice of Klaus Schwab. He is the son of a Nazi industrialist, Eugene Schwab, and he hasn't named a successor yet. Semaphore is reporting that the president of the group, Borge Brende, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. You know, it's probably European sounding, like Borge Brand, or something like that. He is going to continue to have executive responsibility along with the board. Schwab will be a non-official board member. And This is Klaus Schwab. This is the guy that says AI is going to go from predictive to prescriptive. So imagine that. You wake up and instead of saying, what do you think is blah, 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 it's going to be, what should I do today? What should I do with it? Listen, I understand that AI has a crucial role and it's probably just going to get better and better and better. I don't think that replaces elections. I don't think that replaces God. I don't think that replaces humanity and human thinking power. Now, I'm sure Schwab would say, I don't care what you think, Mr. Valdez, you are an idiot. Right? Maybe he's right, And I got to work on my Klaus Schwab. One of our callers does a great Klaus Schwab. Not me, not so much. But the point is, this guy, I believe he's off his rocker. He's a real-life mad scientist, Dr. Evil type, like from the Austin Powers movie. And it makes me think, is this the end of an era, right? I know there's other crazies like Yuval Harari and many other of his disciples that exist, but ultimately, I feel that how many psychos like this can there be out there, right? Is there really that many that push for things like digital ID and digital currencies controlled, so that the government can control how you spend your money? These ideas, they might be embraced by a lot of people, but I don't think that everybody's as effective as Klaus Schwab is at promoting these crazy ideas. But I want to know your thoughts, because clearly this is it's just crazy to me. No other way to put it. Let's go to the phones. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I owe Steve from Cleveland, Ohio, WEOL, from yesterday. We cut you off quickly. I know you wanted to share something about the baseball player, but before you do, tell me what you think about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum.
Well, actually, everything I'm kind of put in is all packed in there. Schwab and everybody, we're going to live to be 100. We're going to run the whole thing. We're designed to live to be 70, 80, 85 years old, and they're showing. So he went in the hospital. Now he's back out of the hospital. Now he's stepping down. Melinda Gates is stepping down. Iranian president kind of...
He stepped down.
Had some bad weather, yeah. And everything that you look...
Under the weather.
And,
sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry.
But the thing is on the weather report, when you go over like the satellites, for some odd reason on that day, it was the 19th to the 20th, 24 hours completely disappeared off of the weather map. It jumped from one day over to another day. And the day he has an accident, 24 hours, there's no trace of it. And when you look at all the things going on, Iran is probably a lot of 35 and under. I mean, their population, they're like Chinese people are good. That's what the CCP is afraid of. They're afraid of their own people. And if this country understood what their government's doing and the NGOs that are down running with the cartel on the border, we got like a whole nother thing going on down there. People that have been in war, all that, these correspondents, whatever, but alternative reporting journalists, as Rush used to call them, drive-by media, and that's what they're doing. But what I was trying to say last night, if Pete Rose bet on a team and his whole life of 4,253 hits,
some number,
and plus Ray and the Ray Fosse hit. So when a guy like that bets, but he can't go into baseball, the Hall of Fame, but Trevor Bauer can't play baseball, but nothing happened to him, but he knew in 2017 that the Astros were cheating because they were using metal garbage cans and they were beating on them, and all this stuff that the Major League and everybody knew, WOKE, all this stuff was going on because Trevor Bauer's a nerd. Well, we don't want you in baseball. You can't play. If anybody wants to go on YouTube and watch him, the kid's a genius, but he's a nerd. He's 33 years old, the former best pitcher, $40 million a year. I'll play for $740,000. So tying everything together, he knows what happened because he played against these people. The Major League Baseball knows, but they can keep their ring. You guys got to pay a little bit of fine. No crying in baseball. That was one of the managers, shortstop years ago. I forgot what's his name. Can't think of it. But the whole thing is you could keep those things, but you can cheat to win a ring, but you can't bet on a team, or as Bauer would go, nothing happened to him. He was clear as could be. So our whole government isn't being run by the government. It's being run by other people. If people would call in, their senators, their whatever, just understand what's going on, get off the media and go find alternative media, and make sure you turn on Rich Valdez every night, Monday through Friday, which is 833-482-5337, Akron. That's where LeBron's from.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to be in trouble if people don't open their eyes. God bless you, Rich. Take care.
You too, Steve. I appreciate it. And I like the way you tied it all together. I was getting lost for a second. I was like, hey, what's going on with all the sports talk here? But yes, I agree with you. Sometimes you have that that odd man out that makes all the sense in the world. And sometimes I feel like that's all of us listening to this show. And those, the critics, they also like to listen. So thank you for that, Steve. I appreciate it. Let me see. Where do we go from here? Paul, Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, Rich, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Hey, kind of back to what we talked about a little bit last night, the ICC. It's the criminal court, and you're calling the person that's in charge of 1,200 deaths, burials. You're calling him a criminal. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around that. And the next thing is, I think it's the inconvenient ally is what they're looking at him as. Biden is trying to run his war for him, and he can't do that. He's not a general. He has no idea what he's trying to do, and yet he keeps doing it over and over, as well as the Ukraine. He's got two fronts going on, and he doesn't know what he's had for breakfast. You're talking about some awesome.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, you're right. And this is the fear that we've had, I think, when he was running, the fact that he ran the entire campaign while he was in his basement, hiding from COVID and whatnot. And this is the guy with the nuclear codes. This is the guy that is, for all intent and purpose, he is the commander-in-chief. I know there's some debate about that, but as far as I know, he's the one who can pull the trigger. And that's a scary thought. And we've got to get it right this time around, because I can't imagine a scarier scenario than the one we have, where you've got Biden, who's kind of all over, right? He's all over. And we have so much on the line. And that to me is a horrible place to be, just a horrible place to be. Paul in Boise, I want to thank you for your call. Folks, when we come back, we're going to get to the rest of your calls. We got calls from Florida, from Wyoming, New York, and I see California flashing in, so that's cool. Let's continue the conversation. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the number. And looking forward to hearing from you on this, on the Klaus Schwab, on the Trump stuff, on anything else, honestly, on stealing copper pipes and copper wire, rather, and not having traffic control devices in certain Oakland, California, because it's easier to put up a traffic sign. And I may not be against that, honestly. The reasoning might be suspect, but the idea, maybe it works. Anyway, looking forward to the chat. 833-4-Valdez. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Yesterday, the State Department issued a statement mourning the death of the Iranian president. Now, I assume as Secretary, you share that sentiment?
We expressed official condolences, as we've done when countries, adversaries, enemies or not, have lost leaders. It changes nothing about the fact that Mr. Raisi was engaged in reprehensible conduct, including repressing his own people for many years as a judge and that as president, it changes not a whit about our policy, but it's something that we've done many times in the past, going back many administrations and many decades, and we do as a normal course of business.
Well, I don't think it should be a normal course of business. I think it's shocking that this administration would mourn the death of the butcher of Tehran. I don't. He's responsible for death, rape, torture, a sworn enemy of the free world. So I think it's a terrible mistake, Mr. Secretary.
That is John Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming, going at it with Secretary Anthony Blinken during a Senate committee hearing while he was testifying earlier today. He's shocked that condolences are being offered for President Raisi, also known as the Butcher of Tehran. So your thoughts on that and everything else we've been talking about. Let's see, where do we go from here? Let's go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Yeah, that's kind of shocking. That guy, he was a bad guy, and I can't believe that they had a moment of silence for him and everything. What I want to talk about was this Klaus Schwab character. Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm correct, the term for him would be blasphemy. Would that be right, Rich? He had a grievance with God. He didn't believe in God.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't have no problem with what's going on with AI and Google and things. Matter of fact, I've got a transmission problem right now, and I went to Google today, and I got a guy from Canada, and he helped me out a whole lot and putting new filters, new gas on my transmission, because, Rich, I just don't have the money to fix that, right now to take it to a mechanic,
right.
And yeah, so I have to do things myself. I'm pretty handy. But, I just think that a lot of people are, getting away from God. And that Klaus Schwab has to be one. There's a higher power, out there. It's not AI or anything like that. It's our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I truly believe that. Yes. But it just kind of strikes me that, that Biden would say, yeah, we're going to have a moment of silence, for this guy over there in Iran. It just seems like that Biden's in cahoots with him. I don't know, but something's up with this administration, and I just hope that Donald Trump wins this next election because he's been falsely accused, bad trial, gagged, everything else. And I hope there is at least one juror that says, wait a minute, man, even if it was me and we turned the coin and Joe Biden was on the other side of it, I would say, wait a minute, something's wrong here. That judge, what's his name, or Sean? Yeah. Oh, I would like to take him and just jab slap him. I really would. But, we'll see how that pans out. But that's what I have to say tonight. Thank you for listening. You've got a heck of a show here, and I'm glad everybody on the East Coast, West Coast, in between listening to you. You're my favorite.
Oh, man, I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you for everything you said. And I'm with you. I think what Schwab and Yuval Harari, who's really, honestly, I look at Schwab, and because he looks like an evil superhero villain, it's almost like, all right, I get it. But the little nerdy guy, Dr. Yuval Harari, that guy is the real wormy one. He's the real shady one to me. He's the one that goes, 3 steps beyond Schwab, or at least he's out there pushing. He's like the Che Guevara of the WEF, right? Whereas you've got Castro being Schwab, and then you have Che that was out there pushing the envelope even further. And yes, it's blasphemous. It's heresy. The whole thing is just crazy. And at least that's my opinion of it, and that's what I'm here for, to give you my opinion. Not fair, not balanced, just my opinion, and that's the opinion that I'm giving you. I try to give you some fairness and some balance by, playing you the audio so you can hear Schwab saying it without me saying he said so-and-so, where it's not hearsay. But ultimately, I think they're nuts. And we got a big problem. I think you're right that we need better leadership in this country. And we get that opportunity every 4 years. And hopefully this year we go in the right direction. But, we've got to figure out where we're going to go 4 years after that and after that. And what do we do to be a counterbalance to this WEF movement, right? There's people out there that subscribe to this, that believe this, that are out there. You know, you've got the Sergey Brins of the world that invented Google, the Bill Gateses of the world that are out there making these changes, creating vaccines, doing all of this stuff. And then there's us, and sometimes it can feel like an insurmountable challenge, but ultimately I think we have the power of people, right? We have the power of the pen, the power to be like Thomas Paine and common sense, and tell others what we know and warn them, you know, the redcoats are coming, and really sound the alarm in many ways so that people understand who these people are. And as much as I don't like to talk about Schwab because I think he's so out there, it seems like some of his ideas in recent years are becoming more and more mainstream. And that's a shame, and it's lamentable, but it's the reality. So I guess it's incumbent upon all of us to bear the brunt of whatever our fair share, to use that term, is in informing the rest of the body politic. So, Paul, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you. Big shout out to everybody listening in Ohio on WHIZ. And we've got calls from Montana, Florida, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, and more coming right back to you straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So the website CoinDesk.com is reporting that El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, Donald J. Trump, El Presidente, is the first major party candidate to accept crypto donations. That's interesting, right? Didn't know that people could make political contributions. What are the limits on those, right? How does that work out? I'd be really curious to find out how that works. But we continue with your calls. Let us go to Al, Kalispell, Montana. Go right ahead, KOFI.
Hey, Rich, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it. Hey, I'm not a big fan of the globalist financial type, but the reason they want digital currency is profit. They don't have to print money. They don't have to hire armored cars. They don't have to employ bank tellers. You can just sit back on the computer and watch the money flow. Now, of course, the downside is with UPC coding or zebra stripes, whatever you want to call them, on products, and with the smart card, as first introduced by Bill Clinton, the cashless society, you can track anything. Yes, that's the downside. But their primary motive is profit. You know, you get to eliminate all those people, half the people in banking, half the people in currency production and distribution.
I think you're on to something there. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think control is also a big part of it, whereas the cryptocurrencies that currently exist, at least the big ones, Bitcoin and others, they're uncontrollable. Right? They're unregulated. They're not able to be controlled, suspended by the government. And so I think governments are thinking, well, I don't want that type of competition, and I want to have that type of control. And you're right. There's an overhead feature and all that stuff, not having to print money. But I think there's also the big elephant in the room with respect to this conversation is the control. I think this is what they want. You know, imagine... It used to be if you kept your money in a bank, we could freeze your assets, freeze your bank account, eliminate your ability to have credit or whatever type of control they could impose there. But if you were an off-the-grid drug dealer that had, a mattress stuffed with cash, then you could still do your thing. But if they create this cashless society that the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab would love to have, then your cash is useless unless you have the digital currency that actually works and allows you to buy things. And that is something that they could control, just like electric cars can be controlled. And for me, that's the part I don't like. I don't like the idea of the government having more control over my assets than I do. I don't want the government to be able to turn off my car if I've, exceeded my carbon allotment of miles. I don't want the government to be able to limit how I'm able to travel or what I can spend my money on because I may have said something that goes against their DEI standards or whatever and whatnot. And that's the type of society they have in China, and that's exactly what I think we need to resist here in the United States, Al.
Yeah, as you just said, that is so perfect. If you said something against them, they can turn off your card. No groceries, no fuel, nothing.
Yeah, and that to me is a very, very, very scary proposition. That's literally 1984 on steroids. It's the personification of Big Brother, and it's something I hope never happens, at least not on any of our watch. Al in Kalispell, Montana, KOFI, thank you for your call, my brother. I appreciate it. Let's continue. Let's go to John, Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB. John, how's the weather in Vero Beach?
Oh, right now it's partly cloudy, and it's, I guess, in the 70s this evening.
I love it. I love it. It was actually 88 degrees in New York today. I think the official number was 83, but my car was registering at 88, and it felt really, really hot. Put on the air conditioner and everything. So I'm glad to see we're competing with Florida. What's going on, Al? What's on your mind? I mean, John, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Rich. It's always a pleasure. A wonderful, wonderful guy. You really got it down pat. Yeah, I have two subjects. Number one, the cashless society, which I agree with the other gentleman's call. And the issue there is the introduction of the tap screens. Everywhere you go now, you have two options. You can go to the cash register and stand in line for a little bit and pay in cash, or you can go to a tap screen, just tap and go. Well, every time one of these young folks use that tap screen for convenience, one at a time, they're giving away their ability to be able to use cash. It's a slippery slope. Taps cards. The second is kind of comical. The theft of copper. When I lived in Tucson 20-some years ago, an alert police officer was sitting there and with his lights off on the vehicle, and he was watching this truck. And it looked just like a power company truck, big truck, with a big, huge cable drum on the back of it. And it was collecting copper. They were rolling. When they apprehended these guys, I think they had gotten several miles of traffic light copper wire. They were pulling it up out of the ground, out of the underground cable system. And they had hooked it up to this big cable drum on the back of this truck. And they were stealing miles of cable. They had it down to a fine art, but they caught them.
That's amazing. They're running around with this truck to wind up. I mean, it's, I guess, like hiding in plain sight, right? Stealing it right beneath everybody's nose. That's crazy, but this is one of the oldest hustles in the book. I remember when I was a kid during, I think it was called Hurricane Gloria, and it hit New York pretty badly. But I had, my brother was in Puerto Rico at the time, and he was telling me what it was like, whatever that was, 1986 or so, maybe 88. But either way, he was telling me how people were looting like crazy, whether it was aluminum siding that was flying off of people's houses or just going into their homes and taking the copper pipe, because that was such a big deal. And I know that happened in other places that were, ravaged by bad weather. But that was just one story that I remember from that particular hurricane. And to your other point, the tipping trends and whatnot, I think that's just, I agree with you. It encourages the cashless society. Almost everything does, because it's become so difficult. And the most, I'd say the biggest barrier is the fact that, let's say I don't have cash on me. For me to go and get some cash, I've got to go to an ATM machine. Now, when I go to this ATM machine, my bank, if it's not from my bank, and the chances of that nowadays is a lot more likely than it used to be, my bank will charge me for going outside of my bank's network, and the machine is going to charge me. I've seen situations where, you know, one's charging $3, the other one's charging $3.50. You're $6.50, let's say, to take out 20, 40, 60, 80, $100. That's quite the premium. And I think people don't want to do that. So they go, you know what? I'll use the tap function on my card and I'll put the tip on there. And it's that much easier. And of course, it's that convenience. Now, my children, as much as I tell them always have some money on you just in case there's a blackout or anything like that, they'll be the first ones to tell you. They use Apple Pay, Google Pay. They swipe their phone, and that's it. That's what all the people younger than me are doing. And it's you're right. These are all designed to take us that much closer to the vision that Klaus Schwab has for all of us. John, Vero Beach, Florida. I hope you enjoy the weather. Big shout out to everybody listening on WTTB. You're very kind, my friend. Hope to talk to you again soon. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
And by the way, out there, that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says "Make America Great Again," that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we see it anyway.
That is Joy Behar from ABC's The View comparing the MAGA hat, Make America Great Again, to a swastika. Are Trump supporters the equivalent of Nazis? I think not, but that's the outrageous equivalent that she makes. It's like when they say Trump is a dictator. Let's go to Bill, Rock Springs, Wyoming, KUGR. Bill, go right ahead, quickly.
Our national debt is increasing by $1 trillion every 100 days, largely because we're sending billions of dollars off to Zelensky, whose presidency ended yesterday, and we're sending billions of dollars off to Netanyahu so he can starve out everybody in Gaza.
So I guess you're not in favor of that, Bill?
Great idea, doesn't it?
Works for me so far, but are you not in favor of this?
I'm in favor of stopping giving money to everybody else in the world and stop increasing our national debt by $1 trillion.
You want to put America first and stop spending? Is that right? Yeah, I'm with you on that. That works for me. It's hard to hear you with all the shouting in my ear. Nobody understands what you're saying, Bill. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Bruce, Ambridge, Pennsylvania, KDKA, quickly.
Hey, Rich, I just wanted to say that I think it's just a formality. It has nothing to do with the administration's policies. Every president has done it in the last 40 years.
Oh, I see. The condolences for the brutal killers. Yeah, listen, maybe that's the case, maybe not. I don't think Trump would have done it had he been president, but I guess they would have criticized him for being nice to Kim Jong-un and mean to the butcher of Tehran. Anyway, thanks for the call. Godspeed. God bless. I'll be back tomorrow.